So one of the things that I just learned about is that the online game has leaderboards, which is really cool, but it's not in the game. You have to go to the website to see it. And as you can see, I'm here. I'm still stunned that I'm like in the top 1% in the world. I'm not entirely sure how that works. I know it says versus points, but I have more than 3,076 points. Like I'm at 6,000 right now, and it's supposed to update every 2 hours. So I don't trust that number per se. Nevertheless, there I am on the leaderboard. And are you a grandmaster? Absolutely not, Kelly. Absolutely not. One of the interesting things is that if you scroll all the way to the back of the leaderboards, you can see how many people are playing the game. And we're using last season as kind of a rough measurement of how many people are playing each mode. So the leaderboards we have here, standard, which is the official tournament standard, basically the last 2 years of cards, more or less. Expanded format is everything from Pokemon Black and White up, so much wider set of cards you can use. Theme deck format is only theme decks, and this is exclusive to TGC Online and Legacy format. We won't really be talking about Legacy format. That is just X and Y and Black and White cards by themselves, and not many people play that mode anymore. But I thought going into this experience that standard play would be the biggest mode because it's the mode that everyone talks about. It's the mode that has the official Pokemon tournaments. Like expanded hasn't been supported by official tournaments in the last few years. I know pandemic is a big part of that, but the most prestigious tournament standard is standard. And if we go all the way to the back of the leaderboards, we can see that there are, let me zoom in here as well so you can get a better view, 53,000, about 53,000 players playing, right? Decent size. But if you go to expanded format, which is again a larger set of cards, you can use pretty much everything from Black and White onward, anything in the game. There's a lot more people playing expanded and TCG Online than standard, and this one has almost 100,000 players, 98,116 players, so almost double the player base is playing expanded, even though it's technically not like the standard. But what surprised me most was theme deck format. Not many people talk about theme deck format because it's pretty limited. Like there are a ton of decks. If we pull the game back up here for a second and we go to the shop, theme deck format does support like dozens of different decks here, but it is kind of stale. They stopped making decks of this style, and most of these decks are designed in such a way that they're all like roughly the same power level. They don't have any of the really cool prestige cards. You're not getting any full arts or GXs or EXs or VMAXs or anything like that in this format. So you'd think like, okay, it's not it's not like the most intense format, but it's got the most players in it by a wide margin. This one has 116,000 people playing in theme, so that this is actually more than double the amount of people are playing in this theme battle versus, you know, the tournament standard of standard play. And that got me thinking about like why is it that there are way more people playing theme versus playing standard? And I think there's some really good reasons for that. By virtue of TCG Online being a free to play game, technically it's really easy. Like you're just starting out and you can unlock decks in the store. You don't have to pay any money. You get the decks, which is great. And then just start playing, and playing theme battles it's still fun and an exciting way to play. And it's probably the most even playing field because all of these decks have been designed to fight one another. You're not going to get wallet warriored out of the game in theme battle by someone who just happened to spend more money on cards, right? And so in that sense, yeah, it's definitely an easier jumping on point for a lot of people to play. And based on these numbers, I wouldn't be surprised if most people just stayed here. You played theme decks forever, you don't put any money into the game, and you have fun. And sure, you're not necessarily playing the most powerful cards or the most prestigious cards or anything like that, but you're still playing the game, and it's still a lot of fun in this format as well. Which then got me thinking of like, yeah, then expanded. What is... And Reality says, maybe it's also because some people just like playing their theme. Maybe those have the Pokemon they like. That's a part of it too, right? The most popular theme decks are the Charizard ones for sure. And you don't have to do any extra legwork to build a Charizard deck. Like, you just buy this and you use Charizard and it hits for 1 billion damage right off the bat, right? So that's part of it. I keep switching back. I have to fix that. It's not supposed to show. It's supposed to show just the browser. Anyhow, expanded format. This one, like, I wasn't expecting this to be as close to theme, but the next most popular format is expanded, and I get the sense that, you know, for people who are playing their decks and you've invested the time and the money to get these custom decks, standard format, after like 2-3 years, that deck is then obsolete, and you don't necessarily want to try and keep modifying it or build new decks. And so you want to keep playing with that deck, you jump into expanded format instead. And it's a challenging mode to play in because there's so many different cards, and it's not necessarily balanced against one another. Like, you're going to be fighting Mega Evolutions versus V Maxes. There are some effects that are really wonky. So it's definitely harder to balance, and you're going to run into some gnarly stuff in expanded format, which is why I don't play it. I like to play standard, which is a little more controlled. But if you've got your deck and you don't want to let that deck go, I see the appeal of expanded format as well. And also, just there's basically no limitations. Play whatever cards you want, go nuts. And then standard format. Again, this is the most prestigious level of play, but it's, you know, one of the lesser popular ways to play the game. And I think it's because of the fact that, you know, you have to put together a deck. Not everybody wants to put in the legwork of, you know, buying cards and pulling booster packs or trading packs to try and get very specific cards. The meta changes every couple of months. A new set drops, and then there's new cards to account for. You're constantly having to evolve with it, and I think for a lot of players, it's hard to just get a deck. To build one deck. Like, I have thousands of cards now in TCG Online, and of the decks that I'm comfortable playing in standard, it's like 4. One that I bought, so it's the VMAX deck, my modified version of it, a mix of the VMAX deck with some Zacian cards, and then a Darkness deck because I bought some Eternatus cards, right? Like, it's 4. I can play 4 characters here, or I can play Theme Battle where I can unlock dozens without spending any money and not having to worry about building a deck. And so the barrier to getting into even if it's the standard format, the barrier to playing standard is actually really high. And I don't blame anyone that's like, oh, this is too scary, or I don't want to put in the time or the effort, I don't have the money. Like, it's difficult to put together a deck that can compete here. Like, yeah, you could play a theme deck in standard and you would most likely get destroyed by someone who has just built a better deck, and it's very easy to just lose forever in standard format if you're not building a custom deck. Even with whatever matchmaking the game has, like, you're still a bad player with a good deck is still going to beat a good player with a bad deck. So it's interesting to see how the dynamics of these formats manifest in such a way where technically the most prestigious, the main mode of the game, is not even close to being the most popular mode. Cowface says TCG is the one type of game that's blatantly pay to win, but everyone is fine with it. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think they've kind of set it up in such a way where, like, yeah, up front, you have to pay to get the right cards to win. And if you don't have them, well, too bad, so sad, bye. At least they're a little more explicit. It's a little more socially acceptable because they've been around. There are ways of getting cards in the secondary market. Like, if you want to build a specific deck, right? The worst way to build a deck is to just buy a bunch of booster packs and hope you get the cards. At least in real life, you can go to a site like TCG Player and just buy the Shadow Rider. It might be expensive, but you can do it. In TCG Online, where you can't just buy cards outright, you have to trade for it, and that's where it gets messy, where you're then buying packs to then trade them in the game, and that becomes really messy as well. But yeah, to your point, there's definitely a pay-to-play element to it, which is also why I think Theme Deck is such an amazing feature in the game. You can play a lot of Theme Deck matches and have access to so many different decks and so many different challengers and not spend any money because you can unlock all of these with in-game credit. So there it is. Yeah, it's fascinating to see how the player base spreads out based on, you know, the realities of the game, and it being really hard to put together a meta relevant deck in the confines of standard play, which is technically the way to play, right? But yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think. Did it surprise you at all to see that most of the players are playing in theme format or expanded versus standard, even though most of the conversation is around standard play? Let me know in the comments.